What's up, Dub Nation? This is Poor Man's Commish, Rich at Let's Go Warriors here. And what I want to talk about today is, well, at a more higher level, getting back to positivity and getting back to a state where we're really having a lot of gratitude, as we usually do here on our game Manning Cast type live streams. But then I also wanted to dissect this background photo right here. There's a few things that happened that, ended up with the Draymond suspension of 5 games that no one is talking about. And let's start by pulling up the familiar back screen that I usually have on our live streams. And I want to start out with a few basics and background materials. So here we go. I want to start out with my background because what I'm about to tell you today, in regards to the altercation, what I think is happening all the time with Draymond, and how social media reacts and how the NBA reacts, namely Joe Dumars, who's officially in charge of dishing out suspensions and things like that. I'm going to get into some rules and how to handle altercations and some of the history of that. And I have to start out with my qualifications. Now, unfortunately, we live in a world where it's not safe to just open your heart to everybody, and everybody accepts you as you are. Everybody wants to make sure that you're fed, that you have shelter, and that you can have a roof over your head, that and build a family in a safe environment. That's just not the case yet, unfortunately. Maybe someday we'll get there. And part of that is that people are going to tear you down just because they're always in a competitive state out there. They're stressed out, which then keeps them in a competitive state, whether it's, something bothering you at work, a coworker that you've got to sit next to in the cubicle next to him or her, and whatever it may be, gossip. And now social media, where it encourages people to post negative things and tear people down and basically bully people. So I kind of have no choice but to tell you the story. Now, my background before I got a credential with the Warriors, it's a long story. It's told in bits and pieces every time there's a Warriors game and I do like I said, the live streams. But one big part of it was I used to run basketball leagues before I did Warrior stuff. And I did these basketball leagues in the worst neighborhoods of Oakland and San Francisco. Now, I'm from the Asian American community, so I've got a lot of background growing up in an Asian household and hanging out with my Filipino buddies when I was a teenager and in college, and Asian Americans in general, Chinese American basketball tournaments, other Japanese league in Northern and Southern California. The list goes on. It's a very deep network of basketball. But then I started running my own leagues. And it started with the Asian American community, but it branched out. And why did it branch out? Because it's so diverse here in the Bay Area. And I want to touch on James Love. Now, this is a scorekeeper, RIP James Love. He used to be one of my scorekeepers in the league, and that's how I would run the basketball league. I would teach kids how to run the operations of a basketball league. Everything was paper-based back then. Maybe it still is these days. I don't know. I don't run basketball leagues anymore. But I would hire these kids. I would pay them, started out at 10 and 12, $15 an hour, which is now the minimum wage in San Francisco. But in any case, this kid was one of my scorekeepers at Visitacion Valley Middle School. So I went into the heart of a very crime-ridden neighborhood. Now, the reason why we played basketball there was because that was the only affordable gyms that I could get was in the hood. So we were there, and rest in peace. I got to say, James, every night that he score kept for me, I would drive him home at the nearby Sunnydale projects. Okay. If you know San Francisco, you know Viz Valley and Sunnydale. I would drop him off and it would be scary as heck, dark as heck. Just, you felt vulnerable, like anybody could carjack you at any moment. And one of those, well, it wasn't one of those nights, but it was on an off day that we didn't have the league running that night. But then the Visitacion Valley community director told me that he got shot and killed right outside his house. So I may not have grown up. This is his brother right here. Now, what we did up here back in the day this is an old copy, an old WordPress blog that was for our basketball league. If you go here, maybe I'll leave a link in the description. If you go here, you'll see that I helped raise almost $4,000 for the funeral expenses for his family. I handed the check, and I did it all through PayPal. I asked everybody, just donate $1. We got like 1,000, 2,000 people spread across our whole community. I was running a pretty darn big league. 125 teams at its peak was playing all over the Bay Area, and handed the check to his brother, Ibn. And so I've been through it all. I didn't grow up in a household as James Love did, but I had to drop off kids right there, and I ran my basketball leagues right out of there. So I think I know what I'm talking about when I say that I have experience of being in the hood, dealing with kids in the hood, talking the vernacular of the hood like I am now. It's bringing me back to those days. And so anytime people challenge me on social media, I already have that base. I have that foundation. So unfortunately, sometimes you got to, pound your chest to get recognized for where you're from and what you've done in your life. So here are some other places we've run our leagues. Willie Keyes Community Rec Center, 3131 Union Street. I remember that wrong. I always say 5151 on the air, but 3131 Union Street. There was a kid that got shot right outside these doors the night before we had games there one time. There is Bushrod Community Center, and this is before the Warriors went in and painted it all Curry brand black and everything. So Bushrod was a mainstay of where I ran Dream League. It's called Dream League. I'll leave a link. You can go look at our old, clunky, crappy website. They're playing volleyball on this photo of Ira Jinkins. People don't realize Damian Lillard, as a kid, went to go watch our games there on Sunday. A lot of people don't know that. And who knew? Who knew he would, this kid watching us in the stand? I mean, I didn't know it at the time. Mike Tatman, the guy who opened the gym for us, would later tell me that Damian Lillard, as a kid, would watch our games because he couldn't play because we had rented the gym out for our league. But then he got to play all the other times. And obviously, my league didn't affect his ability to become one of the 75 greatest players of all time. This is Draymond's home gym. Based on this photo, it looks a lot to me like Bushrod Rec Center, actually. And so Draymond grew up playing in Civitan Rec Center. So let's take a dive. Let's take a dive into what happened the other night. If you look at the replays, and I'm not going to show the replays because it will demonetize our channel. But here's a great photo. Now, I'm going to start with the topics that I'm touching on in the title of this video. I'm going to start with this one. I have a problem as a former basketball league commissioner because I had to make my leagues fair. And so I had to make it the best experience that you could have in the hour that we rented the gym for you. and we utilized NBA rules. I utilized 24-second shot clock. All of the rule book we utilize pretty much to the T, even defensive 3 seconds. And one of the new things that was added to the rules back in the day, and I should pull up David Stern's photo right here. Rest in peace, David Stern. But he came up with rules that were like, remember Amari Stoudemire? The Phoenix Suns jumped off the bench and entered an altercation, and altercations happen all the time. There's going to be a few of them every year, right? And then he came up with the brilliant rule that if you leave the bench, or actually they had to implement this on, I believe, Amari Stoudemire. My NBA history might be a little off there, so don't kill me in the comments on that one. But David Stern came up with such good rules in terms of fighting inside of those 94 feet. There was an elbow rule, and I remember how we really closely looked at that because elbows happen all the time in the game. So I think they've modified it since, but those rules were great. And so going back to this, me being a former commissioner, making sure that inside of 94 feet, it is super safe as can be. The problem I have with Jaden McDaniels here, and I know that Klay may have started the altercation by grabbing Jaden by the collar, but it was one-handed. Here, it's two-handed. And I realized just from this play alone, I'd never seen this really before, or never was cognizant of it in any form of basketball game, any of my league games, any NBA games, whatever, college, up until this point. I'd never seen this. And what I realized is that Klay is extremely vulnerable when Jaden grabs his shoulder loops with both hands. I didn't even know that was a tactic that would leave Klay almost helpless. So if you look at the replay, he's almost helpless. There's nothing he can do really unless he punched back. And I will say this will be a bonus for you who took the time to watch this video. Someone in Klay's camp told me that he restrained himself. He restrained himself from fighting back. But Jaden McDaniels, if you go look at the video, you'll see at the end of it, there's a chance for him to actually punch Klay. He doesn't do it, but it's just too risky for me. So if I were running my league still, I would actually put in the rule book as an addendum that you must not ever, with two hands, grab the shoulders of a jersey. Nobody talks about this. Now, with one hand, which Klay did, that doesn't seem to really do much, as you saw from Jaden. Jaden escalated that. So I have a problem with this, and nobody's talking about it. And the NBA is clueless on this stuff. They don't know what they don't know, and that theme will keep coming up in this talk. So I would have liked to see additional punishment for Jaden for doing that. However, it isn't in the rule book yet. So nobody knew that is an incredible advantage in an altercation until now. And I'm the only one pointing it out. But let us move on. So that's the first thing. I just don't ever want this to happen to anyone again, is getting grabbed on your jersey by both hands, horse collared that way. So that's my first kind of gripe over it all. I thought because of that, Jaden McDaniels should have gotten a worse punishment than Klay. But everybody's saying that as well. So let's move on to Rudy Gobert. This epitomizes Rudy Gobert. And now I'm going to wrap it all together. I'm going to wrap all of this together. My experience running leagues in the hood, how people would act in an altercation, what the rules should be, what the punishments should be. Okay, so Rudy Gobert is generally a clueless guy. And, well, obviously this is the picture in the thumbnail, but Rudy here, I mean, you got to know that you shouldn't try to break up an altercation by going to the other guy's teammate. You don't go to the opposing team. This is not new. Everybody's saying this all over social media, so you know this already, and I concur. Draymond concurs. If this were to happen at Civitan Civic Center, or Civitan Center, my bad. Civitan, the name of Civitan makes me think Civic Center, but Civitan Rec Center, if this were to happen at Civitan Rec Center, what do you think would have happened? I guarantee you there would have been a guy like Draymond headlocking Rudy. And by the way, that's a headlock. Draymond, if we go look it up, Draymond headlock Rudy. That's a headlock. That's not a chokehold. So that's my other gripe everywhere on the internet. This is a sorry, I almost said it. This is a headlock. It's not a chokehold. I know what a chokehold is. A chokehold, and let me see if Google can get it right. This is my first time doing it. These are all wrong. A chokehold is when you go to the back of the head right here. That's not quite what Draymond did. And a chokehold is also, well, we're getting into semantics, but both the other chokehold is both hands around the neck, which has actually happened to me in an altercation before in basketball. And a bigger guy jumped on me and choked me with both hands. That's a chokehold. Okay. But, you know, I get it. It's close enough. I get it. But like, it's a headlock. Headlock can become a chokehold, but it's not a chokehold. So I think the words chokehold made it worse for Draymond. But okay, back to Civitan Rec Center. If this were to happen at a rec center, and I've seen this happen at rec centers in Oakland, in San Francisco, multiple places, we all know that what Rudy did was just dumb. It was clueless. So there are other instances of Rudy doing dumb, clueless things, like you don't sucker punch a teammate. So I don't really have the in-depth knowledge of Rudy Gobert. I did look it up on Wikipedia. Seems like he grew up in a pretty safe environment and never had to go to places like Civitan to play basketball. You know, some basketball academy in France where this type of stuff just really doesn't happen. So I just want to say that I can't even really hate Rudy. I just think he's clueless. He doesn't understand our culture from the hood in America, our basketball culture hood. All right. And that leads me into the culture overall. All the time, these types of altercations happen. And I just think that people who grow up in rec centers like this, they get that because we see the altercations a lot more than you would at a basketball academy or at a camp or at Basketball Without Borders, sponsored by the NBA, or, you know, it's just there's more protected environments out there, and we are forgetting that Draymond did not grow up in a protected environment. Draymond grew up in Saginaw, Michigan. So I want to close this discussion up just by saying that I think we need to get back to respecting people's cultures. Now, at the same time, we also want to, there's a marketing and image requirement of the NBA. There's extra people to keep happy, and those people are, you know, sponsors and people who pay the league an incredible amount of money to be a part of it, and they're generally not from Saginaw either. So there's a lot more constituents that Adam Silver and Joe Dumars deals with that are not really understanding where Draymond comes from. And just having seen altercations in gyms in the worst parts of San Francisco and Oakland, um, knowing what I know about that, I can only assume that it's similar in Saginaw. And really those environments, kids, they don't know if they're gonna get home alive at any given day. I told you that my scorekeeper, James Love, didn't make it home alive that one time. So I know that it's a war zone, but I want to get back to the fact, the final thing that I want to say that no one's talking about is that there is some neglect, and which bleeds into disrespect of where Draymond is from. And I realize that Rudy comes from a safer environment, and everybody else comes from a safer environment than Saginaw. I get that. We got to still meet somewhere in the middle, if not maybe lean more towards where most people are. But right now, Draymond's background from Saginaw and what you do as an enforcer on your team, sort of the unwritten rules of how basketball's played in the hood, in Saginaw, in Oakland, how protection is brought in those environments, and what it means for someone like Rudy to go into an altercation and put Klay in a position where Draymond doesn't know what Rudy's going to do next. I mean, that's being ignored, and yet everyone continues to want to punish Draymond and want to change him and want to suspend him for a month instead of 5 games and things like that. And the 5 games, I mean, me as a former commissioner running a basketball league within the 94 feet, I don't have any sponsors or constituents or broadcast partners to worry about. So I don't really need to suspend a guy for more than like 1 game, 2 games. And they're paying me to play in a weekly Sunday basketball league. So what I would have done is I would have just suspended definitely Jaden McDaniels, as I mentioned, for the double horse collar. Rudy Gobert for getting in the middle of an altercation. And it's just kind of like Amare Stoudemire. Like, if you go into an altercation, you're going to make it worse. And I'm not the only one saying this. You could go to Gilbert Arenas' podcast. You could go to Patrick Beverley. You could go to Richard Sherman just said something as well. They're all talking about it today. Go look them up. They're saying the same thing that I'm saying. Rudy is an idiot. You do not do that. But then again, I'm disrespecting where Rudy's from. So I really shouldn't use the word idiot. It's just that we're so used to all these altercations all the time, where Richard Sherman's from, Gilbert Arenas is from, Patrick Beverley's from. I ran basketball leagues in those same neighborhoods. So I get it. I get it. And Rudy doesn't. But we still need to find some kind of balance. Like, it's just not quite there. It's way too balanced against Draymond. So that's my request out there as we return to positivity before the game. And I don't know if I'll be able to edit this by the time the game starts, but maybe I'll just throw out the whole half an hour recording I got here and see how it works. But I probably do need to do more editing in the future on things like this. In the comments, if you like this kind of discussion, maybe I'll make it a theme. No one's talking about whatever, but I do want to do some news things. I don't think I have enough time to actually put the video or the audio of Richard Sherman talking, Pat Beverley, Gilbert Arenas, and the list goes on. But there are those news items that are out there, and so I just want to close with respect Draymond's background. Everyone should do that. Even Warriors fans that are frustrated, bothered by Draymond. You shouldn't be, because this is who he is. And for you to want him to change, that's unreasonable. And look at the value that he brings. The reason why he's getting suspended for 5 games is that people don't understand where he's from, and they're not respecting that part, that value. And I think there is a lot of value for bringing basketball in the hood to the NBA. He's the one guy. I mean, there's other guys, yeah. I mean, Patrick Beverley, but Pat Beverley's only like 6 feet, so he can't physically impact the game as much as the next guy that's from the hood. And maybe the next guy is Paul George, and quite frankly, he's a quiet guy. He's a scorer. He doesn't need to do this stuff. He doesn't need to do all these ancillary things, become an all defensive player like Draymond did. Draymond has to do those things because he's not the scorer. He's not your prototypical AAU athlete that's going to make it to the NBA and be a draft pick next. He's doing all these other things. And by the way, that should be celebrated. He's a unicorn. So I would hope to just change the minds of a few people, a few Warriors fans out there. Although those of you who continue to be commenting on social media as a result of some negative stuff happening in your life, I want you to be aware that that's what you're doing. Work on those things. But maybe we can, try to band-aid it just a little bit with this topic, which is let's respect where Draymond is from. I hope I did something for you with that. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you on the live stream tonight. Go Oakland A's. Go Oakland. Go Oakland. And we'll see you tonight for the OKC Warriors game. I appreciate you all.